think as we move forward and advance this conversation in equity, I think what we will ultimately see, right, or what I hope that we see 15, 20 years from now, maybe when you and I are in these roles, is how did these initial questions, how did this initial plan, how did these initial analysis, knowing that there's going to absolutely be shortfalls in the data or gaps, how will it ultimately affect the Healthy Places Index? How will lifting up one part of a community that's maybe been overlooked lift up the whole community? And I think that is something we're excited to hopefully see throughout the years of this equity work that we're trying to kind of put together.
I have a question for you about how is EMSA thinking about workforce issues? Now, workforce issues, there's an equity lens there too. It's a part of it. It's that, the diversification of the workforce. How are you thinking about it and approaching it at this stage in your work?
Well, a couple things, I think. So in terms of the workforce, I'd maybe separate it into a few different buckets. So I think the first is maybe the most obvious, I don't know that for sure, but is really the diversity of the workforce. Can we look at, we have the central registry data system, and through that we have, all of the information on our EMS providers, and can we somehow collect race and ethnicity data through this licensing process and with our LIMSAs for EMTs, and really answer the simple question, are the providers who are serving the community, do they look like their community? Are they culturally competent? Do they understand? So I think that's kind of the first part of the conversation. I think the second part of the conversation, maybe the second bucket, is around training programs, right? How do training programs, or do training programs differ statewide based on where they're offered, how they're offered, who they're offered by? I think really, and that is a little bit more of a qualitative exam, less so than the first bucket, but really digging into those programs. And do some programs offer cultural competency modules while others don't? And I think third is really, and I don't know how we solve this, right? I want to be very transparent, but I think it's this moment of what, for those who call 911 and receive support from an EMS provider, what is their lived experience? It's difficult, right? 7 million plus transports a year, and even more touches every year than the 7 million folks who may not be transported, or interfacility transports, or a BLS response, whatever it may be. But I think, what is their lived experience, and how do we get that information back? How do we qualify it? How do we know what their experiences were if they were disabled, if their provider maybe didn't look like them or came from another community? How is that lived experience from our workforce professionals who are providing care? What does that feel like to them? And I think, again, I don't know how we get this information yet. I think it's all part of this process we're going to unroll together. But I think those are maybe the three buckets of how we think about workforce.
I love it. Yeah, I think that definitely mirrors how we think about it as well. I know here at the CARESTAR Foundation, we are doing some funding on programs. They're doing really specific and targeted outreach to communities that have been historically underrepresented in EMS roles. And so we're hoping that that does have an impact. And I would say, we can talk about this a lot more, but I think the value of our partnership, right? A specific partnership, not necessarily between Liz and Tanir, but a partnership between a statewide regulatory agency and a funding agency. I just think there's a lot that collectively we can do. So while we're funding some programs to help produce the new generation of wonderful and ready to roll, EMTs, and hopefully also paramedics, although we're starting mostly with EMTs. We could be doing that sort of on this side of the house, right? While you all are making space for larger scale conversations and drawing attention to what what is the value to all of these organizations about more diversified workforces? What benefits is that going to bring to an entire community? And that's something that, quite frankly, we struggle with a little bit right now. We don't have great data on why it matters. What do the data show on why does it matter? What kind of a difference are you going to see if we have more harmony between the workforce that is responding to emergencies and the folks who are in crisis? We don't have a lot of data to show what the actual benefits are. What we know are community members who are saying sometimes language access is an issue. Sometimes cultural differences can get in the way of receiving the best care, or being heard or understood or seen in the way that they want to be heard and seen. But we definitely need more documentation and data so that together, you as the perfect amplifying body and us as sort of, writing the checks for the researchers to get out there and do the work, we could really work collaboratively on a lot of these issues, and workforce definitely one of them, because it's a big issue. It's going to take a long time.